this is almost a perfect time. I've seen a lot of people really struggling, absolutely. But I've also seen people really kind of take this on, that this is a time where they can actually do whatever it is that they want to do. It's kind of like the universal bar has gone, okay, everything's really tough and that's fine. But at the same token, like with the bar so low, anything which you do, the worst case is going to happen is like, yeah, it was tough because of this situation.
Yeah.
But the opportunity is really there, and that opportunity is open for everybody.
Welcome to the Driven Young podcast with Byron Dempsey, dedicated to educating and inspiring the younger generation around entrepreneurship and practical life skills we aren't taught in school. Created for young people who seek direction in establishing their goals and passions. This podcast provides a platform for discussing the steps taken by professionals in their field related to handling finances, making money online, starting a business, growing a network, and much more. And now your host, Byron Dempsey.
Welcome back to the Driven Young podcast. Today I'm joined by CEO of JA Australia. JA, or Junior Achievement's purpose is to inspire and prepare young people to succeed in the global economy. Junior Achievement maintains an active vision front and center on how they can have a positive impact on the lives of more students. So you can see why I decided to have Aaron on the show. I love what the company is all about and what they're doing, and I think the Driven Young podcast and my brand heavily aligns with what they're all about. Now, Aaron, as I mentioned, is the CEO of JA Australia and a mentor for many, many young people, focusing on the areas of leadership, communication skills, presentation and stage presence skills, teamwork and team management skills, professional identity and student professional awareness and development, entrepreneurship methodology, and financial literacy for young people. In today's episode, we cover a lot of these topics and we get deep into COVID-19. Is there opportunity amongst the crisis? We talk about the different types of learning, what Aaron learned from his time in the Air Force, and so much more. Aaron mentioned he would be keen to come back on the show and do an entire episode dedicated to improving your presentation skills. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, reach out to me on Instagram and let me know. Now, over to Aaron. Aaron, welcome so much to the podcast.
Byron, g'day.
I'm super excited what we're going to talk about. If it's anything like the conversation we just had before the podcast, it's going to be really good. So just before we get into that, I'd love to know a little bit about your story.
Yep.
So just kind of, I'd like to see, like, what did you do after high school? And kind of how did you get to where you are now, and what are you currently up to?
Yeah, great. So straight after high school, I jumped into a diploma of business. I kind of went for a scholarship. I had a look at my marks, and I was like, I'm not really happy with these marks. And in fact, I'm pretty sure that I got this scholarship as a way to justify getting low marks. So that's an interesting one. We can chat about that one a little bit later. And I did a diploma of business, jumped into my ideal degree, Bachelor of Business combined with Bachelor of Arts in International Studies. And after my first year of that, I took a year and actually jumped into the Air Force.
Oh, really?
Yep.
No way. Cool.
So it was the Defense Force Gap Year program. I was in the Air Force for a year, went through the recruit training, went through the officer training, and then did a 4-month internship. So that was definitely a very foundational aspect that set a foundation for everything.
And by foundation, because I actually encourage like military or Air Force to people like as an option. Because so many people don't even consider it. But like, because my dad did military, so he's often mentioned it to me, and he's like, it's just such a great way to build discipline and kind of just build that foundation, as you said, because I feel like our generation, or like Gen Z, millennials, are very undisciplined.
Yes.
Because just the way we grow up, we've got everything comes to us. We want Uber Eats, we can get it delivered. We want, we want to say hi to someone. Everything on our phone is instant. I feel like we lack a lot of discipline. So like stuff like that can really just kind of build that in early on.
Yeah, and as well as that, when my experience of going through basic training was, and through high school, I had actually done Air Force cadets for about 4 or 5 years.
Okay, cool.
So I was familiar with the environment. I was familiar with how to march, how to salute, all the basics I kind of had down. And then the recruit training took it to another level. But what I realized was everything that they teach you in recruit training, they only ever expected you to know what they taught you. And as a result, anything that's outside of that, you didn't have to worry about. And I think that a lot of people have all of these things in this external area of their world, which are like, this is what the world is doing, this is what my friends are doing, this is what's going on. And we don't really stop to think about, okay, what's actually in my zone of control? What am I actually expected to do? What's actually there? And then we feel a lot of overwhelm from all this stuff coming in.
Yeah, because you can't be good at everything, right?
Well, I don't know.
Because I mean, most people, like, a doctor's good at being a doctor.
Yes.
They're not going to look at engineers and all these other things. They're just going to focus on being a doctor. And what you just said, like, it's just everything you just said has been amplified thanks to technology and social media. Yes. I think, which is just making it even more difficult, especially for the generations that are growing up with it from day one. Like, what are your thoughts on kind of that, the social media affecting it?
Well, I'll talk about people can't be an expert on everything, and then I want to look at social media.
Yeah, great.
But let's jump into that first. So when I was in high school, I think there were probably a couple of key discoveries which really kind of got me going. But along and inside there was probably something which I had, which was some version of like, Aaron, you just need to be really useful. Right? You need to be really useful. And that kind of like, I didn't really realize it at the time. I just kind of went around being as useful as possible. Someone needed something, I'm like, I'll help with that. People needed someone to organize all the charity stuff. I'm like, yeah, that sounds cool. I'll help with that. And as a default sort of way of being, it ended up with me getting a lot of these different skills, right? So I think that's fantastic. But without being clear on it, it was something which I just kind of went to. Now that I'm a lot more clear about what it all is, I'm like, okay, cool. There's actually something here, because I spent a lot of my high school life and a lot of the, like, probably first like 5 to 6, 7 years out of high school going, I really don't want to be specializing in something. Going into uni, specializing in something, going into one specific profession was literally what the entire system felt like it was pushing everyone towards.
For sure, yeah.
And I was like, I'm not clear if I actually want that.
Especially at a young age.
Yeah.
Like, who knows what they want to do? Most 40-year-olds don't, so how could you know it, 18, 19?
That's it.
It's very difficult. And that's kind of the pressure, I guess, that people are under.
Yeah.
So if I do this, am I pigeonholing myself into this one career path?
Like, people have this existing idea of what a career looks like. I go to high school, I get good marks. And I get good marks so I can go to a good course in a good university, because if I don't get good marks in high school, my life is over. Now, once I go to university, I've got to get good marks there. I've got to get a top internship. And then I've got to get into the grad job, where after a couple of years, I'll be promoted. After a couple of years, I'll be a manager. After a couple of years, I'll be a director. And this is an example for business, but really it's applicable in so many different professions.
Yeah, it's just climbing the ladder.
Yeah, and then at the end of that, I'm going to retire, I'm going to live happily ever after. And it's a very linear sort of path when I hear most people describe it. And if you ask anybody, so we run mentoring programs where we literally give students 7 minutes with a mentor, rotate 7 minutes, rotate 7 minutes.
Oh, great. That's awesome.
So it's speed mentoring. It's kind of like speed networking, but speed mentoring. And the students really get to ask these questions of, hey, like, did you expect to be where you are now 5 years ago? And you can kind of guess the answer just by thinking about it. None of them said yes.
Bro, the difference, I think about this all the time. The 12-month, like the gap between every 12 months for me is completely unpredictable.
Yes.
Like, I never would have thought I'd be here 12 months ago and before and before. Like, it's insane.
Yeah, and something which one of my friends told me once that I really started to take on is like, what would life be like if you lived as if every 3 months your prior self would be unrecognizable to you just because of how much you've grown and how much you've kind of taken on completely different things. And we're in a time at the moment where it occurs to us that the world is crazier than ever.
Yeah,
situation is really oppressive. And this is almost a perfect time. I've seen a lot of people really struggling, absolutely. But I've also seen people really kind of take this on, that this is a time where they can actually do whatever it is that they want to do. It's kind of like the universal bar has gone, okay, everything's really tough, and that's fine. But at the same token, like, with the bar so low, and this isn't a judgment about like people having like different circumstances and things like that, but like with everything going on, anything which you do, the worst case is going to happen is like, yeah, it was tough because of this situation.
Yeah.
But the opportunity is really there, and that opportunity is open for everybody.
Especially in Australia, like if you're on JobKeeper, like you're not working, but you've still got an income coming in. Yes. Kind of like me right now, as I mentioned.
That's right.
Like I've lost a lot of clients, but I've cut a lot of costs as well, but I've still got a lot of money coming in so I can survive. That's why I'm going all in on this show, this podcast, putting out content and everything, because I don't make any money from it. Like maybe hopefully in the future I'll be able to, but right now I don't make any direct money from it. And so I'm like, this is a perfect time for me to go all in on my passion, which is this, because I've got JobKeeper coming in. I've got all that. Come September when that all stops,
Yes.
I've got to go back to bringing in money for survival. And so it's exactly what you just mentioned. Like, the bar's kind of gone down. And if you've got JobKeeper coming in or something like that coming in, you can focus on projects, little passion things, all that sort of stuff.
It's a cool situation because I think a lot of people have that opportunity where they're not necessarily doing things, and they've got the choice to go, life's really tough, I need to find something, or they can go, okay, what can I...
Exactly.
Accepting that's the case. It's not going to change. Like, the world's the way the world is. I'm the way that I am. What can I create out of this space? What can I actually get excited about? What can I get really passionate about?
Yeah. And I mean, we can it does suck at times, but also remembering we're in Australia or we're in a developed country. Like, there's so many countries that have it so much worse, and we're doing well. I mean, we were doing well until like 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
I mean, at the time of filming this, Melbourne's just recently broken out. But yeah, I mean, you're exactly right, and there's an opportunity. But sorry, we've just gone completely off. We're supposed to be telling your story. So if you just want to wrap up, like, you went from... So you said you were at uni and stuff, and you're doing a business degree.
Business degree, yep.
And what happened then?
So after I came back from the Air Force, I really dived into getting involved on university campus. I joined a few student societies and really started discovering leadership in that area.
Yeah.
So I ended up becoming the president of a student society, jumping on the union board, which was looked after the sports or the social clubs or the different activities on campus. And that kind of really stepped me into this world of, okay, like, wow, there's a whole world out here of governance, and really was a education that I wasn't really expecting. So I just kind of kept on putting my hand up for opportunities, and somewhere along the way, around 2012, I really decided, as just a side thing which I wanted to do, is like, wow, I want to take up any speaking opportunity that I can get.
Yes, nice.
And I was like, this is something really powerful. I've seen people who are my age, younger, older, be able to get up in front of an audience and really have this audience be along with them in every single step of the way. And I decided for myself, like, wow, I want to be able to do that because that is the way that I'm going to be able to make an impact for so many people.
Yes. I can relate to this so much, as I mentioned, because I want to start speaking in front of younger people as well. And the reason because we talk about like online courses and you can do obviously people can watch me for like hours and hours on YouTube and stuff, but there's something so powerful about seeing a speaker in a room. Like, I don't know what it is. It's just that in-person connection is so much more powerful, and the motivation and the practicality of it. And so that's kind of why, like, as you mentioned, you'll see speakers who can get up and just like move an entire room in 45 minutes, and it's super powerful.
The interesting thing I'm playing with at the moment is delivering that experience of... So I run workshops now which have people discover presentation skills or discover presenting. And I make a distinction from, I'm not teaching them presenting, I'm creating a space where they discover it for themselves.
Yeah, great.
Okay, so in an online workshop which I ran last week, I actually had probably some of the best engagement that I've ever had, compared to in-person workshops. And that wasn't something which I was expecting.
Well, that's because I'm very extroverted, right? So I love the in-person workshops and that sort of stuff. But I know for a fact, because I've been quite heavily involved in online events, I've had to pivot with a lot of my clients and stuff, that some people love the fact they can sit in their pajamas at home with a laptop and still participate and get all the benefits. There's no travel, there's no expenses. You can just sit and do it from the comfort of your home. And so, I mean, that makes sense that you're actually getting higher engagement online. That's
right. And an engagement from an in the room, actually participating, jumping out, asking questions. A lot of university has shifted to online, and the experience for a lot of tutors, and I've done this as well, is a sea of blank videos.
Yeah, it's shocking, isn't it?
A sea of blank videos. And it's very easy if you're a participant, it's very easy to turn your video off, turn your mic off, listen to the content or not, and then go and cook dinner.
Yep.
Or go and read a book.
And in your head, you're like, that's all right, I just did a lecture today.
Yep.
Did you actually do the lecture? Or did you just put it on and zone out for the whole time?
Yeah.
It's like, it is difficult. And, Zoom has great features like breakout rooms and stuff.
Absolutely.
Where you can segment people and make, like for an event we did, for a podcasting event, people loved it. We had regular breakout sessions with the same people. So after each session, we'd break them out. They'd have lunch together. So they'd go away for 10 minutes, come back and eat their lunch at the computer and network and stuff, and just kind of build that. Try create the environment of an in-person event, but online. And I mean, I've got lots of friends in uni, and it's, once again, they actually like it because they don't have to travel and they don't have to, but you miss out on the social aspect, and it's not as powerful because a lot of the tutors will just do their same presentation, just convert it onto online, where it's just a PowerPoint presentation and they're just talking and talking.
Well, interestingly, the motto of the Officer Training School of the Royal Australian Air Force is accept responsibility. And that's something which got drilled into us the entire time that we were there, even and including things like one of your team forgot to lock their door. It wasn't you. It was them. Accept responsibility.
Yeah.
Like, what could you have done as a team member to make sure that everyone had locked their doors? What could you have done to personally check that situation, or that room was secure or not secure? And in this sort of education space, we've got a lot more freedom now. We don't have to necessarily go to a physical place, but if we want to have that promise of that education, if we want to take on learning and getting everything that there is to get, there's a level of responsibility that we can take.
Yes.
And if we don't take that responsibility, the world's going to keep on going, right? It's going to be fine. And most of the time, there's not going to be any negative consequences. Maybe your marks might be a bit less, but you're missing that opportunity for yourself.
Yeah.
And the responsibility isn't something, a lot of people see responsibility as something which is put on you and it's oppressed. But I would say that it's something which is an opportunity for you to take. If you want. You don't have to, but the opportunity is there. Yeah.
It's kind of like my dad used to say sometimes in the army, they'd say assumption is the mother of all fuck-ups.
Ha!
And it's like never assume he locked the door. That's basically what comes down. Never assume he locked the door. You need to check it. You need to have a system in place or something. Take responsibility. That's that sort of thing. And like, I'm bad at it. I'm always kind of listening to this. I'm always trying to subconsciously be like, take responsibility. Especially like you as a CEO, you've got a team and stuff. It's your job to take responsibility if someone makes a mistake or something, because you're like, why did they make that mistake? Do we have are our training systems ineffective? Are they not motivated enough? That sort of stuff. So you can get deeper into it.
And that's worthwhile. Like, so a lot of what we kind of go through when we look at some of the, especially the entrepreneurship stuff. When we have people discover entrepreneurship and really start to play with it, we take the approach of none of what we're teaching you is true. Okay, it's not false either. What we want you to do is go, okay, here, take these activities, do the activities, and see what you discover.
Yes, I love that.
And see what you discover. Yeah,
I liked, because I follow a lot of people online and stuff, and I like to just take what I like about what they're doing, and like on my phone, I've got like my screenshot, my screensaver is like a bunch of different people that I admire.
Yes.
But I don't want to be any of them. I just like taking the best bits that I like about them, depending on who it is. If they're driven, David Goggins, you know him. Like, I like how driven and motivated he is, and then with his fitness and stuff. I don't want to be like him because he's hardcore, but I want to take some of that. I want to take some of that into me. So it's exactly
Jocko
what you're saying.
Willink,
Yeah, all that sort of stuff. And so I love that kind of thing. You're just giving, I guess you're creating the environment where they can kind of figure it out themselves.
Yeah, and it's a big difference between getting on the court and actually playing out and actually seeing how it is in your life in real time as lived versus in the stands. Like, a lot of us will default to being in the stands. We'll default to, I think this, or if I ask people in a workshop, like, hey, tell me why is this workshop is important for you? And I want them, what I want to hear, or what I'm asking for, what I want to hear is exactly what they say, mind you. But what I'm asking for is why, if a response like, this is important for me because what I experience is this, and it's important for me because of all these things. That's what I'm asking for. What I often get is like, speaking is really important because you really need to do this, you really need to do that, and all this sort of stuff. And I just ask them to notice when you disassociate. Well, it is what people have told you, but so is, to an extent, majority of things that people will say are. But when you say, you should do this, I've asked for what do you want, not what other people other than you want. So it's an interesting sort of thing. We just disassociate from these things. And I would say that there's learning to be had there, but it's unlikely that we're going to discover anything profound for ourselves in our life. It's the difference between going, right, I go up on stage or I run a podcast and it just happens, or I go up on stage and I'm worried about, am I going to say the right thing? Am I going to say it the right way? What is the right way to do it? Am I doing that? And it's almost a difference of going, right, what is the knowledge? And I need to constantly check. I need to constantly check the scenario. Whereas once you start to discover something, you can actually go, hey, this is just how I'm going to express myself.
Yeah.
Something happens. Yeah, okay, cool. This is what's happening. I don't have to check some external piece of knowledge. I don't have to reference something else.
And everyone's different. Right, so that's what we're saying. Like, everyone learns different as well. I mean, I think there's a study that shows there's 8 different learning types, and everyone is all 8, but usually people lean towards two core ones. And I guess the problem is with school focuses on only 2 of the 8, and that's, kind of writing down.
Yep.
It's just a traditional way of learning, which a lot of people don't learn. It's not very visual and that sort of stuff. And so you're creating an environment where people can go in and they can kind of learn whichever way they want to learn and discover, they can kind of adopt that and kind of bring that in, which is, once again, linking back to school, where I think they're doing, it's very difficult. As someone who learns very visually, and I'd rather do an hour brainstorming with 3 people, and if I had an hour brainstorming, going bouncing ideas off each other, we'd get some great results, versus if I had a week to research myself on a computer and write it all down, I reckon I get more done in that hour on a brainstorming session, because that's just how I learn, and that's how I can get results. But obviously at school you're just sitting down writing.
Totally. In that sense, I think something that's there as well is we immediately always have this idea, and we're comparing our ideas and what we come up with to, is this right or is this wrong? And also on another layer on top of that is like, does this make me look good or does this make me look bad?
Yeah, sure.
So that's always there, and it's fine that it's always there. But if we don't realize it, then sometimes we kind of kid ourselves that, I just need to get this perfect. I need to get this perfect because it'll be better. I've had so many, and then this is definitely, so my way of doing that used to be, and still shows up, by the way. I've got this big project. I know what to do, but first I need to sort out all this other stuff first. And I went through life doing that so much, and it still pops up every once in a while, until I realized, and quite recently, every single time I told myself that, at no point in time did I ever actually sort out everything.
Because you're never ready, right?
Yeah, you're never ready.
You're never ready.
Never ready.
I wasn't ready to launch this podcast, and probably like now. Now I feel like I'm ready. I launched it 8 months ago.
Yeah. Well, this is like 2026, 27.
Yeah. I just need to get it out there.
That's it.
And I'll improve. It doesn't matter how much research I do on how to interview guests and technique and everything. I did a little bit of that, but you just learn it just by doing it.
Well, I think that's perfect, because what you've done is really illustrates something that I really recommend to everybody, and especially young people, which is, if you want to have a think about something, if you want to plan something, I would say that, I'm not saying planning's bad, I'm not saying research is bad. I'm saying, what I would say is, have a set period of time that you're going to do that.
And a launch date.
Yeah. And then start taking action. And if it's an hour of research or an hour of brainstorming, or even 10 hours of research, 10 hours of brainstorming, have the actions actually go do that, and then have the actions and start making things happen.
Yeah.
I'm in a world at the moment where so many of the different workshops and things that I'm doing, I'm constantly kind of creating as I'm meeting people. So I'm meeting different people and different things, and I'm having a chat, seeing what's important to them, and I'm like, hey, why don't I run this workshop for you? And they're like, wow, that's really cool. I'm like, okay, cool. I've got to write this workshop now. I've never done this workshop before. I know that I have all of the experience. I know that I can be effective in facilitating, and by now I know I've done all these things online. But if I go and actually plan out, hey, let me get back to you, I'm going to plan out this perfect thing, it never happens.
Yeah.
Or at least I've never done it.
Same. And an expression I hear all the time is, as entrepreneurs, we've got to jump off the cliff and build a plane on the way down.
That's it.
Like, you've just got to jump. You just got to start doing it. Because, and the other thing I've spoken about a few times on this podcast is stop starting and start finishing.
Yes.
To start something and see it all the way through, especially if you're entrepreneurial. And I'm a big victim of this. It's like it's so exciting to start something, right? It's like, oh, look, I've got this great idea. But when it comes to actually executing it and getting into the minute detail and stuff, it's so exciting to start a podcast. 80% of podcasts don't get past 7 episodes.
Yeah, wow.
It's like, it's so exciting. And then, but once you get into the editing and you actually, it's exciting to edit the first one, then you get into your 8th, 9th episode and you're like, oh, I can't be bothered. I'm not getting the results I wanted, and people just give up.
Do you know your Myers-Briggs personality type or disc?
I've done it because we did it for Dents at a retreat. We did it. The whole team did it. And
Are you an ENFP?
We did a Tony Robbins one.
Yep.
He's got one, and we got like a full sheet, and it was scary accurate. Not just for me, for everyone.
Yep.
I think it's a really cool. There's quite a few on there, and they're like animations, and it'll give you like your hero type or whatever.
Yeah, archetype.
I can't remember exactly which one I was,
because I'm seeing a lot of things in what you're saying, and I'm wondering if it's the same. Now, mind you, this is a very human thing to do. We want to see how people are similar, but for me. So it's something called the DISC model. DISC stands for dominance, influence, steadiness, and conscientiousness.
I think
Tony Robbins has a version of this. Absolutely. Yep. And so the dominant type, and a lot of people hear dominant, if they're not dominant, they'll be like, oh, that's so oppressive. No, it's just this is your natural way of expressing yourself. The dominant type is going to be like, go, 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 go. And other types are going to be like, right, why are you so angry at me? It's like, I'm not angry. Go, go, go.
This is my personality.
This is just like, what are you talking about? Like, just get it done. I'm the I. I is, hey, check it out. Got this awesome program, brand new. It's going to be amazing. Before we start, just quickly, just want to show you this brand new project. It's really exciting. And we'll start in a moment. But before we start that, here's this other brand new project. So I really resonate with that whole finishing thing. Steadiness is, are you okay? And just making sure everyone's fine. Just really looking after the relationship. And the conscientiousness is like, hold on. I need to make sure all the details are right. I need to make sure everything's lined up. Do we know what the minute plan is? And
that's my biggest weakness, that one.
Yep.
It is the detail. It's like, getting into the detail and everything. I'm so bad at that. I love the big picture thinking and coming up with ideas and conceptualizing it. But when it comes to like executing to a fine amount of detail, this podcast, there's the amount of mistakes that are online and like a few spelling mistakes here, or like I did something wrong or whatever. I just put it up anyway. Yep. But it's like when it comes to like details, that's where I'm really bad,
I'd say that each of them have critical flaws.
This episode of the Driven Young podcast is sponsored by me. Guys, I've been working on something for the past few months, and I'm super excited to announce to you the HSC Roundtable Sessions. Aimed at lost and confused HSC students, this is an online virtual event where I will link you up with current university students studying your dream degree. The event will give you a choice of 10 university student mentors, and you'll get to choose from who you want to learn from based on their degree, based on their university, their experience, etc. I will then break you up into small, intimate groups where you can ask them any question you want about university, about the degree that you want to study, about the social life, anything you want. There are no boundaries. So if you're in year 11 or year 12 and you want to learn from real and current uni students, I highly recommend you check this event out. It is online, and because the student mentors are volunteers, I have managed to lower the ticket price so it is significantly more affordable than anything else online. The average tutor costs about $50 an hour. And this event will give you access to 3 mentors of your choice and access to me, all from the comfort of your home. Because you're a listener of the show, if you use the code DrivenYoung at checkout, get 30% off your ticket right now. So if you're interested, go to www.drivenyoung.com/HSC Roundtable. That's www.drivenyoung.com/HSC Roundtable and use the code DrivenYoung to get 30% off. This event will be run by me, so I will be there, and I look forward to seeing you there. Now, back to the show.
Maybe critical is the wrong word. Each of them have setbacks.
But they complement each other, right?
Absolutely. So if you can work together with someone who's willing to get the ideas out, and with someone who's willing to kind of crack the whip and just make sure things get on track, and someone who's willing to take responsibility for the details and make that happen as their natural self-expression, as like they just love getting in and making sure that all the I's are dotted, all the T's are crossed. Those that's a really good balance. Yeah. Because if you go too far towards one direction, you'll get someone who isn't going to start anything because the details aren't perfect.
Yeah, they'll just keep planning.
Yeah. On the flip side, on my side, on the I side, you have someone starting so many things but not finishing them.
Yeah.
And both are unworkable. So you need to kind of go, okay, where's that balance? Or if it's myself, are there things which I need to plug as a gap? Or if I'm in a team, how do I balance this team out? Or another one, which a lot of people don't do, and I've had this in the past myself as well, is like, are there things that I'm doing that I should stop doing?
Yes.
Because that's so difficult.
Have you read Atomic Habits?
I have.
Yeah, so one of the things, first of all, for anyone listening, because this tricked me, atomic is small, right? Like
yes.
Atom. Like I think of like atomic bomb.
Same.
So
I had the same, yeah.
Like, when he says Atomic Habits, the book is all about putting tiny habits over and over. But what he makes out in the book is habits are great, but what's actually equally important is getting rid of your bad habits.
Yes.
Which is what you just said. So getting rid of those things and figuring out, I guess, is it figuring out what you're not good at?
Well, there's a whole world around strengths as well. So there's an analysis tool called StrengthsFinder 2.0, and that looks at, okay, what are your 5 strengths? And actually, most people will be better served with focusing and doubling down on their strengths rather than plugging their weaknesses. Especially if those areas of weakness are areas where they're not naturally lit up about or not excited about.
Because there are going to be people who are lit up and excited
about doing those things,
and they're going to beat you.
Or they're going to love working with you because you've got that sort of balance.
Yeah, well, you got that balance.
Yeah.
All right, so just want to shift gears a bit and talk about entrepreneurship. So just want to make it clear, like, this podcast is not an entrepreneur podcast because I don't think entrepreneurship is for everyone. But I do think it's important we learn at school because I'm an entrepreneur. You're an entrepreneur as well.
Yep.
So it's something, and there's over 3 million Australian entrepreneurs, also Australian small business owners. So it's obviously a huge chunk of people who are, finishing school. It's a serious option. And just like uni or the Air Force or trade or whatever it is, entrepreneurship should probably be an option as well. So what are your thoughts on that? Why do you run workshops for young people in entrepreneurship? Like, why is that important to you?
Great. We believe that entrepreneurship is fundamentally powerful for everyone who wants to take it on. And a lot of people have this conception that entrepreneurship is just for people who want to start a business. Small, big is for people who want to start a startup, for people who want to make millions of dollars, become the next Uber, become the next Airbnb, become the next Google, things like that. And at a high school level, or even at a primary school level, or even at a university level, really entrepreneurship gives you the access to start looking at problems in a slightly different way. It gives people a structure, and what people say when they come through our programs, and in fact, not just our programs, other entrepreneurship programs as well, is they have the ability to start going, okay, I have a structure to actually look and identify this problem. I can start thinking about who is actually impacted by the problem. If I just go through life and say the problem's a problem because it's a problem, and you can't answer the question of, well, who are the actual physical people who are impacted? And climate change sometimes gets a bad rap for this. Like, why is climate change bad? Because it's bad. But once you start to be able to frame it within this frame, you can go, okay, this particular issue, who are the people involved? Okay, maybe let's look at farmers. Maybe let's look at everyday people. And then you can start to get that empathy. You can start to understand what is important for people. And you can start to understand what actually is value. What is going to actually make the difference? What's going to make them take their money and give it to you so that you can do the thing which you're saying you're going to do. And at the end of the day, all of these skills are really part of everyday life. And raising these levels of skills will give you a raised level of ability to just be in the world in general. So entrepreneurship really gives that frame. And one of the biggest things which I really enjoy about entrepreneurship is being able to sit in the question, I don't know what's going on here, and having it be okay. We have so much emotion put into, I need to know the answer, I need to be right, I need to avoid being wrong, I need to look good, and if I say something that's possibly going to be wrong, now it's going to be bad, so I'm not going to say it. Whereas entrepreneurship is like, boom, spaghetti on the wall. Did it stick? Nope.
Yeah.
Try again.
Yeah, here's my product. Did it work?
Yeah.
Let's see how the market responds. Didn't work? Damn, let's try again. And no successful entrepreneur just started a business and went successful. Look at any successful entrepreneur, they usually had 4 or 5 or multiple failures before that. And I think also that's something important going in. It's like, understand you're probably going to fail. But that's good because you learn. And
what we call a business, I mean, it has a legal constructed meaning under the legislation, but really, if you look at it, it's a series of connected actions and promises, right? So it's a bunch of different things, and as you go through, the actions either work or they don't work, and some work, and you can measure them as being effective or more effective or less effective. But all of those different things, and then promises going, hey, I'm going to do this at this time, and in return, you're going to do that, or you're going to give me money, or you're going to exchange this thing.
Yeah.
So down to the individual building blocks, it's like a connection or network of actions and promises. And once you start to get that, and this is cool. I've never actually described it like that before, so this is interesting.
First time. Okay.
Yeah. But when you start to have a look at that, you can start to go, okay, like this thing that I call a business or this thing that we call business is actually a big chunk of abstraction. And most times when we deal with abstractions, we assign an opinion to it, like, oh, that's tough, or that's bad, or that's good. When in reality, there's a whole bunch of different individual components that once you start to look at, you can go, okay, here's what I like, here's what I don't like. You were talking about education before. You might not want to be a new Mark Goggins, but you want to go, okay, I want to be able to have that level of self-discipline in my training.
Yes.
Right. So this is what I want to take. So with business, like entrepreneurship gives you that lens to quickly start to break things down and be seen at an individual level. And that's really powerful. That gives you a whole new view of life.
100%. And it's something actually we talk about in Dent, which is a community we're both aware of, and I was heavily a part of, is what they kind of call like an entrepreneur.
Yes.
And it's someone who's quite entrepreneurial, but they don't want to run their own business. But you can be entrepreneurial within a company. And something that's happening a lot nowadays, especially with Gen X and millennials in the workforce, is they actually can, the Tim Ferriss 4-hour work week sort of thing, you can kind of be entrepreneurial, not technically, but you can be entrepreneurial in your job, such as saying, like Tim Ferriss, the 4-hour work week, he'll say, go to your boss, prove that you can get 5 days work done in 4 days, show him how you can do it, and ask him, if I do this for 2 weeks, I work 4 days a week, and you see any difference in my productivity, then bring me back on for 5 days. But if you're happy with the results, I'd love to be able to work 4 days a week. That's like entrepreneurial within a business. And then you can spend an extra day to work on building a side hustle or whatever it is, or spending it with your kids. You can do whatever you want with it. But that's kind of like, what are your thoughts on kind of this entrepreneurial just generation, even if it's not a literal term?
Well, I think that ability to go and ask the question, in a fixed structure sort of environment, a lot of people experience this. They don't feel that they can go up and ask that question where if I have the same level of productivity, can I have the same level of pay even if I work less days? But the power in that is in the question. The power in that is in the question, whereby it frames it in a way where it's actually difficult to kind of almost turn down sometimes.
Yeah, if you go and approach it, it's like you're giving them the math.
Yes.
And it's a trial. You say it a trial, so it's like, I'll do it for a week, 2 weeks. What's the harm? Let's see if it works. And if it works, it doesn't. If it doesn't, it doesn't. He can't say no, almost.
And the value of the questions and the value of entrepreneurship within an organization really is in the quality of the questions that it gives you the ability to produce. And that's a whole life thing, right? Like a lot of people act as if they need to know the answer, and they act as if being smart is knowing all the answers. Though if you ever notice, like the moment someone hits you with a really intelligent question, you're just like, oh, that's really good. And a lot of people who are at high levels in business and established companies, if you can ask them really, really good questions, that typically makes them notice. Because they're not necessarily used to that unless they've created that in their environment.
Yeah.
So being entrepreneurial or entrepreneurial within an organizational context often gives you the ability to see things in a different way, to identify where is the default status quo that we're working with. Like, this is just the default, it's not good or bad, but what do we want to create maybe? What do we want to look at? Where's the future that we want to go to? And then going, okay, what are some of the questions that are going to be asking of which will make the difference just by asking them?
I think it's important for people to kind of realize this in young people, because a lot of people will be like, I don't want to be an entrepreneur because I don't want to manage everything, have a team. I'm happy having the security of a job and just going in and knowing that I've got that security, and I've got 4 weeks holiday or whatever it is, which is every entrepreneur kind of dreams of having that. I definitely have. I've been like, it'd be nice to just have a job and kind of have that security at one point. But I think it's powerful for them to realize that you can actually still take on entrepreneurial skills and apply that in the workforce, even if you're not the boss or the CEO.
Well, what you were talking about before, just around the 4-hour work week.
Yeah.
And looking at one of the concepts in the 4-hour work week is, what is your actual minimum viable income level? Like, how much do you actually need to pay the rent and survive? And most people don't calculate that. And for me, the moment when I calculated that was, I think 2016, I was about to quit a job, which I really really wanted to get out of. And I hadn't actually lined up another job. And I calculated I've got rent of this much. If I literally don't go out, if I literally eat rice and beans, okay, I can survive for 4 months.
Yeah.
With the available cash. And at this stage, like this was also available cash. Wasn't cash on hand, it was accessible debt by this stage.
Also pointing out, a stat is the average Australian can only last, with $500 in the bank, can last 2 weeks or something.
Yeah.
That's how bad a lot of Australians' financial management is.
Yeah. And mind you, so 4 months was with accessible cash. This is eating into debt, mind you.
Sure, yeah.
But that was quite profound because I was able to go, so that means that I've got 4 months. I can literally do no productive work for 4 months. And I can be full on chasing down whatever I want to do for 4 months.
It's a long time.
That's a long time.
Yeah, you can get a lot done.
That's a long time. I ended up, I think, starting a job at a company which I previously worked at within about 3 to 4 weeks, or I think maybe 6 weeks. So that whole runway was able to be put towards other stuff. But just being aware of that actually took away the uncertainty, because that uncertainty is the big thing for a lot of people in terms of anxiety. A lot of anxiety is directly related to I'm not clear about what's going on, and I've got an opinion that it's a certain way.
So, do you see that a lot? I guess because you work with a lot of young people in school and stuff, with workshops and stuff. And I've mentioned this on the podcast a lot. Do you see this a lot, a lot of anxiety and mental health, and there's a lot of confusion and anxiety around the younger generation? Do you see that a lot with your students?
I see that there's a lot of uncertainty, and I hesitate to call it anxiety or call it ill mental health.
Yes, because that's a diagnosis.
Not as a stigma, and also as a diagnosis. But I want to think that all of those things, which are diagnosis created in language, and yes, there's a circumstance there, and yes, there might be all these different medical things, and I'm not a doctor or a psychiatrist or a psychologist. But in those things, I've also seen people who have been experiencing what they're experiencing, and the moment they shift their context for it, everything just changes like that. So I really see it in the question of, I'm not sure as to whether something is permanent. I do know that a lot of people, if we say, and this is an example from people who have a disability or experience a disability, there's a marked difference if you have someone who says, I am disabled, versus I have a disability.
Right.
And one is the I am disabled, this is me, this is my identity, whereas I have a disability is I am me and I have this disability.
It's just something that
I've got.
Yes.
And that gives so much ability to actually relate to that as something separate to and independent from who it is, what I say when I say this is who I am.
Yeah, right. That's really powerful.
So that's an interesting sort of thing, right? So I think, yes, a lot of young people are experiencing a crazy amount of random and tumultuous things. And things aren't going the way that people expected, especially these days. And I think, look, if we say that the times are getting crazier and crazier and we are seeing unprecedented times, if we have a look, right, that would have been accurate 10 years ago, 20 years ago.
Exactly.
It's going to be accurate in 15, 20 years from now as well.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting sort of thing.
It's the same if you look at the GFC, almost 10 years ago, which is where everyone was saying crazy times. The amount of companies that came out of the GFC, I think Uber, Snapchat, there's all these massive unicorn companies that came out of the downfall because they leveraged that opportunity. In all negative things, not all, but often in negative situations is a positive outcome if you decide to choose that positivity and kind of go and figure out how can we make the best out of the situation.
Absolutely, and you said choose the positive outcome, and I'd say that there's some power in also choosing the situation which you might call negative. You go, because here's the thing, right? If something's happened, no covering it up or no making it positive is going to change that it happened. It happened.
Yeah.
And it had a certain significance and it had a certain meaning, and we kind of apply all these things to it. But the moment we can go, I choose that happened. And it happened. And look, not saying it was bad, not saying it was good, not changing it, not adjusting it, not diminishing it, not saying that I'm not upset or I'm not any of that, but hey, it happened. And now I'm going to do what I'm going to do now.
And I find a lot of the bad stuff that's happened in my life at the time, which seems really bad, often ends up good. I look at how did I get here? A lot of bad things happened, but then something happened off the back of that, which got me here. Yes. And I'm not saying that's always going to happen, but if you hear a lot of talkers and stuff, they say the same thing. They'll say, oh, when this happened, Tony Robbins, he talks about a story with Oprah. It's like when she, the same with the hero's journey. Often when the hero gets down, they get to a point where everything seems over. Suddenly they flip the switch, and that's where they come back up. And that's a literal arc, like a graph in the hero's journey. When people are down there and they switch it and come back up. And I think that's a good mindset to try to have. Once again, we're not diminishing the fact that something bad has happened to you, but try to understand that there actually can be good outcomes off the back of it.
Yeah, and this is something which I forget where I took it on, like probably for the last 5 to 10 years. I've really taken on that how I feel or how I react to something is completely up to me.
Yes.
Right? And sometimes that's more difficult than other times.
Of course,
right?
yeah.
And I'm not saying that I'm this robot who just kind of goes through emotionally through life, but I really take on that if I'm feeling upset, that's because I'm feeling upset and I'm choosing to feel upset. But I am not upset. So there's a difference between I'm feeling upset, I'm experiencing these bodily sensations, and I am this. Because when I say I am this, then I'm just walking around upset.
Just admitting it, yeah.
Well, it's not about admitting it. There is some things to do about in terms of acknowledging it, but it's that identity things. I am this is really powerful because we just kind of take it on. We create it in the words that we speak.
It's another thing like Kerwin Ray and stuff. They'll just be like, I am unstoppable. It sounds cheesy and people will yell it out, but every morning I think people would wake up and they'd say, I am this, I am this. It's just kind of reciting in your head. The same goes for the negative. I am upset. I am, I am sad. I am sad. It's just going to kind of eat away at you, and it will take a toll mentally.
Yeah, because the studies around the brain and ideas, there's this thing where we think that we decide to do something and then we do something. But when they've actually done studies, the brain connections for the action actually happen. First thing to get is your brain causes you to have the thought and your brain causes you to move and do the action. Right? So actually the source for both of those things is for the brain. So it's not the decision that's causing it. But then there's an even deeper thing, and I don't know the answer to any of this, but the signals which get sent to cause the action actually happen about 5 to 10 seconds, up to 5 to 10 seconds before your brain registered that you've made the decision.
Oh, really?
Yep. So it's interesting, but I don't know the answer to that. But
That's just something you heard. You don't know the...
Well, I know that that's the study. I know that they've done the scientific studies on that. But what it means is we go through life thinking that we decide to do things. I don't know anymore.
Yeah. So Tony Robbins says as well, life happens for you, not to you. Or something.
Yeah. I do know that we get to choose the context through which we receive things. And that can be really powerful. If I go through life like this really turbulent time where everything's on its head and I can't go places I want to go to, if I have the context that wow, this is really exciting. What can I do to have fun in this situation? That's going to really shape my experience completely differently than if I had a context of I'm just really stuck.
Yeah. I'm
just really stuck. And I think for young people, the world is going to be throwing all sorts of life is tough, it's okay to stay down. And I'm going to say that there's a level of tolerance there. Absolutely. And I think that gives rise to so much opportunity, because everyone, if you look back and go, hey, do you remember that really tough period of time? What were you doing there? What were you doing there? Not much. Okay, yeah, I get it. Right? I don't think that's going to...
No one's going to look down on you.
No one's going to look down on you. Perfect. You said it perfectly. The opportunity there is the moment you do even the tiniest bit of anything, you just stand out like a head and shoulders above the rest of everyone else.
Because while everyone's at home doing nothing, you can be working on your craft or building something, which is exactly what I did. At the beginning, COVID hit, I lost a bunch of clients and I was like, oh man, this is tough. I was working at home, which I really struggle with working from home. I need an office space to just separate the two. And I was like, man, this is tough. I'm just going to try ride this out, ride it out. I'm not going to do anything innovational. I see people who are doing this, and and then things started to pick up, and now I'm at a point where I'm like, this is great. I actually love the opportunity I've got right now. I'm spending it to go all in on the podcast and do all this stuff, and I'm kind of getting a whole bunch of traction on TikTok and stuff, and it's I feel really good about it. But at the same time, no one's going to look down on you if you're not taking advantage of it, but you can still try to take advantage of it.
Absolutely, and even if nothing works.
Yeah.
Even if nothing works. And that's really a strong entrepreneurial mindset. We were talking about that just before. a lot of people are attached to this ideal set of outcomes that they think should happen. And I even had this experience this morning. I was having a conversation and I was really struggling to communicate what I thought the return on investment for a coaching program that I'm putting together would be.
Sure.
And my friend, he was like, look, I'm not asking this as if this is something which we're going to put on the website tomorrow, but just to have a look. And I realized that I'm just kind of collapsing, like I'm trying to say this is what the value is, but I'm also kind of trying to go, I don't know if I can justify this. Here's all the reasons why it might not work. And I realized I had just the two things completely collapsed. So now I can go, okay, for the purpose of doing this, I can just say what it is. And then it's not going to be the perfect thing. It's not going to be the end. It's just a stepping stone.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something I love to talk about as well. Brick by brick or stepping stones. It's just taking one step, taking another one. It's like, how do I achieve a massive goal? You take a step.
One step at a time.
Just take a step, exactly. No, awesome. Love it. We've talked about a lot of cool stuff, but just before we kind of wrap everything up, so I ask all my guests this question, and can be completely unrelated to anything we've spoken about today, just whatever, I guess what comes to heart, or what would your number one piece of advice be for the younger generation, high school, early uni, people who are kind of just entering the real world or the workforce?
First thing I would say as advice for young people just entering the workforce or leaving high school or really entering into any next stage of life, or even thinking about entering into the stage, I would say start taking action. Whatever that looks like, regardless of whether you're scared, regardless of whether you're uncertain if it'll work. I would say that any time spent thinking, realize if you're spending time hesitating, if you're spending time just thinking about it for a long time, ask yourself, how much more thinking is going to make the difference? How much thinking have I done so far? How much is going to make the difference? I'm not saying thinking is bad, but taking action really puts things into place. And I would start by saying the smallest action as possible that you're comfortable with is the right place to start, which is to say there is no right size of action. You don't have to do this grand gesture. You don't have to do this amazing thing, but it might be as simple as, hey, I'm going to connect with someone.
Taking that first step.
Hey, they connect with me. Hey, I'm going to send them a first message. Just a simple action. And the second thing that I would say is I would share as much as possible. What are you up to in the world? What do you want to achieve? Because something magical happens when you start telling people in your life, when you start telling people in your network, when you start telling people that you have contact with every day, day to day, you start to tell them, hey, this is what I'm up to.
Yes.
They're going to start listening to you in a specific way. They're going to start listening to you as if that thing's going to start happening.
And who knows? They might know someone who can help you.
That's right.
These are great 2 points on action. Great example, first of all, the podcast, I mentioned it earlier, but a more recent example is I just launched my TikTok and it's blowing up. I've got almost 50,000 followers. I'm getting great response from a lot of the videos, which is just, first of all, encouraging for me that the content I'm putting out is valuable to people. But secondly, I've been aware of TikTok for a year. I've been on it for ages. I don't know why it took me so long to launch it. Why didn't I just take that action? And now I'm kicking myself. I could be who knows where I'd be if I started earlier this year. And so it's just take that action. It can be as small as sending a message or something, whatever you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
But usually, if you're uncomfortable with it, it's usually something you should be doing. That's what I find. Anything that, they say discomfort precedes victory.
That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Or Yes Theory have a brand. Their whole clothing line is seek discomfort. That's a clothing line.
Yes.
Seek discomfort. So if it feels uncomfortable, you should probably do it.
Yeah.
But Aaron, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Before we wrap things up completely, if people want to find out more about you and your company, where can they go? What's the best place to find you?
jaaustralia.org or on Facebook, JA Australia, facebook.com/JA Australia.
Yep.
Or find me on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/IN/Aaron, AARON,
Yep, and all the links will be in the description below. So thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you, Byron. It's been a pleasure.
All right, if you are still here, thank you so much for listening to this entire episode. If you got some value out of it, it would mean the world to me if you left a review on iTunes or shared it with your friends or family. Otherwise, I'll be putting up videos of this episode on Instagram and Facebook, so check it out there at Byron Dempsey or at Driven Young Podcast, and I'll see you on the next one.